moving on, how do we end up with compromised boundaries? Apart from physical abuse, where the violations of boundaries is very clear, growing up in an environment where your needs are neglected on a regular basis and your feelings are ignored and dismissed, that will have a profound effect on one's boundaries at 4 levels. It will affect your health physiologically, it will affect your feelings, it will affect your cognitions, and it will affect your actions consequently, or the choices you make in life. Here's how educator and counselor John Bradshaw put it. And it's a long quote, but he puts it so well and explains it so well. So he says, children are egocentric. This does not mean that they are selfish in the usual meaning of the word. They are not morally egocentric or morally selfish. Children are egocentric because they had no time to develop ego boundaries. An ego boundary is an internal strength by which a person guards their inner space. Without boundaries, a person has no protection. A strong boundary is like a door with a doorknob on the inside. A weak boundary is like a door with a doorknob on the outside. A child's ego is like a house without any doors. Children are egocentric by nature, not by choice. Their egocentricity is like a temporary door and doorknob in use until strong, healthy boundaries can be built. Strong boundaries result from the identification with parents who themselves have strong boundaries and who teach their children by modeling. Children have no experience. They need their parents' experience. By identifying with their parent, they have someone on whom they can depend outside of themselves. As they internalize their parent, they form a dependable guide inside themselves. If the parent is not dependable, they will not develop this inner resource. Children need mirroring and echoing. This comes from their caretaker's eyes. Mirroring, someone is there for them and reflects who they really are at any given moment in time. Quite powerful, and just goes to show how important what you as a parent model to your child, or what your parents model to you, how much that can carry on in your life. And if by listening to this, you suddenly feel a little bit sad or maybe even angry because you realize that hasn't been the case in your life, I want to just encourage you to stay tuned, because it doesn't mean there is no way how to repair it or how to build this boundary later in life, and I will speak on that as well. Next, I want to talk about what exactly happens at the biological or biophysiological level when a person has compromised boundaries. How does that happen? What's happening in their body, in their head, in their brain? Because we are so blessed nowadays with the advancements in technology and so many studies that allowed to trace a lot of the processes, what is happening in the brain and what leads to that. And so this is really wonderful because it gives us more tools and intelligence about how to approach it in a way so that we can minimize this. So based on the research, the first 3 years of a child are extremely critical because of the way their brain forms and because of how crucial that first 3 years foundations of development are. From the very first day, when you look at a baby and you think they are nothing but a blob, they grow. It's been estimated that they grow about 40,000 cells per minute. This is how intense they are developing in their brain, their neurons, and how intense they are learning about what's happening around them. And this learning happens mostly from the interaction with their mother as the primary caregiver. The physical and emotional presence of the mother is so crucial to the point that it can alter the DNA of a child or of a person. The research on stress, maternal care, and gene expression that was conducted by a researcher called Michael Meany has found that there is actually a gene that is responsible for sensibility, and that gene will express in the absence of adequate nurturing towards. So all that sensitivity that we just talked about to the environment and all kinds of stimuli only makes sense now. And a mother who has not received adequate nurturing will struggle to nurture her own baby in turn. Because research shows that as generations go without adequate nurturing, there are fewer oxytocin receptors in their babies. So the catching and transmission of oxytocin, which is this warm love, bonding, fuzzy hormone, is compromised, and essentially that changes the DNA structure of a person. As you maybe heard it, you hold trauma in your cells. It changes your DNA and your ability to cope with stress for generations. This is also known as intergenerational trauma, or the generational expression of trauma. These babies are also known to have issues with their serotonin receptors. And as you know, serotonin is the feel-good hormone, and so the love hormone, so they cannot uptake it again properly. And what before was misunderstood as colic in babies, which was mainly referring to digestive sensitivities, now it turns out that this is actually emotional sensitivity to anything in the environment, and their inability to be happy because of this issue with the serotonin uptake. So as a result of this, biologically, these kids emerge more sensitive to stress, more likely to develop anxiety and depression later in life, and to really struggle with settling down and feeling comfortable in their own bodies. And here's the good news. If giving such a baby lots of love, producing lots of oxytocin and a mother around a lot, those babies have just as good a chance of developing into resilient kids and adults in the future as a person born without this serotonin uptake problem. It's truly amazing to say that we can neutralize the effects of a gene just by being there for our babies and loving them. Because again, and this is another piece to this biology, when a parent is absent physically or emotionally, a lot of cortisol, which is the stress hormone, is released in a baby or a child's body, and that inhibits the healthy processes of brain development. And oxytocin serves as a buffer against this cortisol. It basically neutralizes this. So if you're there for your baby, you're laying the foundations for them in the future to both regulate their emotions and build adequate boundaries, and essentially break this intergenerational expression of trauma. And if you're someone who struggles with compromised boundaries, there are ways still to heal and repair. But I will focus more on the repair and healing, as well as in what forms neglect towards a baby, towards a child is manifested, in the next video. Until then, take care, and please do me a favor, please share and subscribe. It will give me an extra incentive, so I look forward to seeing the next one. Meanwhile, take care.